Hi everyone, it's William. I'm in the apartment today, kind of hiding out. There's so much work going on that this seems at the moment to be the best location. Anyway, I'm also being lazy because I could walk to the other end, the other wing, to the doctor's consulting rooms, but yeah, anyway, it's an interesting time here. The hotel will open on the 6th of June, and so staff are coming back. The work, of course, that's been going on for the whole time during the mid-season has to be finished. And yeah, it's kind of strange. I've been here completely alone, in total solitude. And then when things start bustling again, I feel a little bit like, oh no, my peace and quiet. But then there's such an energy that comes with that, and friends returning and that sort of thing that, I tend to get caught up in that. So it's all good. Anyway, we are up to the second part of the October 27th letter. It's not as long as the previous one that I think we had to do 10 sections of. And, much more serious. Well, no, the other one was serious, but talking about really practical things rather than mysticism. Although there's some of that too. Okay, I'm off to a bad start here. I'm already rambling. So this is, the October 27th, 1939 letter that Dmitri wrote to Maria while he was here at Schatzalp. And we did the first part yesterday, and it had a lot of really interesting things about Maria's life, but we could only sort of infer things from what Dmitri said, because I don't know about any of you, but I don't have much information about her life during that period. And there is a biography that will be coming out about her soon. I'm not sure what the text to photos ratio will be. It may be more photographic. I'm told some of the photos are really spectacular. But anyway, until then, I don't know that much about what Dmitri was talking about when he talked about how hard her life and her work were. And he started expressing what was the heaviest thing, the thing that was weighing on him the most at this time, was he was being urged both by Audrey and Maria to send Polly to America to live with his mother. And he was very worried that if that were to happen, Polly would not come back. And Dmitri didn't want to live in the United States. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Anyway, today's cast, we have Polly, of course, Audrey, and we have a man named Flower, Reginald Flower, and he was, when Dmitri was married to Audrey, and thereafter he was an English gentleman's gentleman. So he was Dmitri's valet or valet, and he did not come to divorce with Dmitri, but he was still, at least for a while, he was still on the payroll. We'll see in the diaries. I think Dmitri mentioned sending a few checks to Flower. So he's mentioned today. Now, I have to admit, there's a certain amount of discontinuity in this letter. It was photocopied for me by a woman who was doing research at the Mainau archive. She did her own little biography, more focused on the emigre period of Maria, and she photocopied these letters for me with the permission of Count Bernadotte. I hadn't yet gone and done my own research at the archive there. And this particular letter, it must have been photocopied in haste, because a few words at the top of each page, or a sentence at the top of each page, are cut off. And there was sort of no way, hard to explain, but anyway, she couldn't staple the whole thing together in the exact order. And I literally, the pages aren't numbered, and I'm literally having a hard time with the absence of the top sentence, figuring out the sequence of pages. And so I know it sounds like a simple thing to do, but it's actually been quite difficult. And so I've had to put in parentheses what I get from the context here and there, where there's at the top of the page a word missing. Sometimes I can make out part of the sentence. So I'll let you know when I've done that. And also, I'm not sure exactly what the order is of the text. So there's a certain amount of discombobulation, if you like. Anyway, the text itself is very interesting. So we start with a sentence where I've filled in the word London because I can't imagine what else it would be. Okay, so let's get going. London, Paris, Berlin are left alone and not bombarded. Ascot is out of the war routes, and even the London children are sent to that area. So much for what may be called in 1939 wartime civilian safety, in quotes. Now let us look from the other point. For Polly, life did not change at all, not a smallest little bit, war or no war. Please recall that this is written in English, so it's not that it's a bad translation, it's that it's idiosyncratic English. Okay, now let us look from the other point. For Polly, life did not change at all, not the smallest little bit, war or no war. In other words, he is in the same school, which he simply loves, with the same friends, same masters and matrons, same nanny in her same house where he spends Sundays, inviting every time one or two boys' friends, exclamation point. So it is just the reverse from being alone, exclamation point. He is no more alone now than during any other time in peace, exclamation point. Neither Audrey nor myself ever saw Polly during his winter terms and got him only for Christmas or Easter. One or two Sundays I don't count. Okay, here I've filled in a word. Suppose, that's the word, suppose I decide to take him to America. Let us see how it works out. To save time, passports, etc., I will speak about them later. I presumably send flour. Why? Reason. The American lines don't like to take anybody who is not American or English. Leaving England with me or flour means for Polly to bid goodbye to all that he calls, in parentheses, poor thing, home, exclamation point, as beyond his school and Nanny's house he has between no other home. His mother talked to him a lot about a lovely home in France, but now she must give it up, and not on account of the war, but on account of her husband's papers. Papers is in quotation marks. Laughable, exclamation point, but true, exclamation point. So if we would have no war, Polly's home would be with his mother on the ship, or whatever you call it, exclamation point, and with me in hotels during the summer. Beaumesnil would not be available. Okay, I filled in the word available. Going back to Polly's departure from England, leaving it, it will be a terrible thing for him. He will part from all what he knows and from Nanny. Will part not just for some time or a long time, but pour toujours. Remember our going to Moscow? Okay, I'm going to stop there. Once again, not because Dmitri goes to another topic, but simply because, I don't want it to go 40 minutes, So let's see what we've got. Very, very interesting stuff. On the one hand, Dmitri is in denial about the war because he doesn't want to send his son away. But on the other hand, it was a denial that a lot of people were in at that time. I've mentioned before the so-called phony war, which was the phase that the war was in. So Polly's school was in Ascot, and I know the name of the school. I'm sorry I didn't take the time today to look it up in my notes because I do know it. And so Dmitri says, no big deal. London's not going to be bombed. Don't be silly, Maria. And even if it was, he'd be safe in Ascot, which isn't in the so-called war routes. He himself puts it in quotation marks. So he just doesn't want, it's wishful thinking. He just doesn't want to be separated from his son. Yes, where are we at? How did I manage to lose myself? Here we go. Okay, so interesting to find out that Nanny had a house, apparently right next to the school grounds. She was an Irish woman. Her name was Hickling, Nanny Hickling. And when I brought her up to Paul, his face kind of lit up and he said, "Oh, how did you find out about her?" Actually, I can't remember where I found out her name. Dmitri does use it, but I can't remember if it's in a diary or a letter. So Nanny Hickling, Paul told me that Dmitri adored her corned beef. So she has this house. So Paulie's at a boarding school, but he goes to Nanny's house for the weekend, sometimes brings some friends, and we find out what life was like for this divided family before the war, at a time when they were still all in Europe. They would not see him during the fall and winter term, except for maybe once in a while they would come for a Sunday to stay at Nanny Hickling's house and to see Paul. And then during the summer, they apparently, shared him. So Dmitri could simply not be more wrong about how Paulie felt about all this. He did not love his school. He hated his school. He made that very clear to me. He said he was bullied there relentlessly. And, it raises an interesting question. Why didn't he tell Dmitri? Why didn't he tell his mother? Well, Dmitri could be slightly in denial about this as well, but I think if he understood that his son was really miserable, he would at least have put him in another school in England. Children oftentimes don't tell their parents about things like this. They don't tell their parents that they're being bullied. They don't, for whatever reason. They don't want to, maybe they see that a parent is under stress and they don't want to worry him or her or both of them. Maybe they feel like, they kind of have their own secret children's world. And, I don't know. I just know when I was a child, I had things that I kept from my parents that nowadays that I think, oh, why the heck didn't I just tell them? And I'm sure all of you have the same memories. So I guess, it's no big discrepancy. It's no mystery how this could have happened, that Paulie just hated it at his school and that Dmitri thought he loved it. Paul told me that specifically that the other boys thought it was so silly that he had this title of Prince. Apparently he was the only boy at the school who was called Prince, and that they really rather like the Moore boys that Dmitri says were teasing him when he was 5 years old about why aren't you a Grand Duke? Aren't you good enough to be a Grand Duke? And these boys, the matrons and masters had been instructed to call him Prince and to address him in a certain way, and the other boys just thought it was absurd. And so they bullied him. Okay, anyway, what is Audrey's situation? Again, like the situation with Maria, I can only infer things from what Dmitri says. So apparently her husband, Prince Dmitri Georgiadze, who was a Russified Georgian, apparently he had some problem with documents where he couldn't live in France, and Audrey apparently couldn't live in England. Dmitri mentions elsewhere because of tax issues. And so there he refers to this ship, or whatever you call it. So what was that? Did she have a yacht or something like that she was going to live in international waters? Hard to see how that would have worked. That she and Georgiadze were going to live on this ship or boat. And Paul would live with her there, and then live with Dmitri in hotels during the summer. Yeah, it's not ideal, for sure. So he thinks that's what would have happened if there hadn't been a war, and that wouldn't have been great. But now, now, even if there hadn't been a war, the point he's trying to make is that Paulie would not have had a stable home, because Beaumesnil, after the divorce, Dmitri had had to give it up. He'd had to let it be sold. And so there was no longer that place where Paul had been brought up. That was no longer available. And this whole idea of the nice little house, how does Dmitri put it? His mother talked to him a lot about a lovely home in France, but now she must give it up. So Dmitri seems to think that because he loves his school and because everything is perfectly safe in England, or at least in Ascot, that is the best solution. And Nanny is the adult in his life who's stable, who he's with. And yeah, how strange would that have been for another family at that time in, say, the British or American upper classes among wealthy people? Would that have been similar to the way other children were being raised? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I just know what Paul's perspective was on the whole thing, which was, thank God I was sent to America, because my life changed so much for the better. And I'm happy that Dmitri didn't know that. Anyway, not that he didn't know that his son was thriving and doing well, but that he didn't know that that his son had been so unhappy in Europe. Okay, boy, I'm really outdoing myself for just speculation today. Sorry about that. He ends this by saying, remember our going to Moscow. So the inference there is that it was horrible for them, just as Dmitri thinks it will be horrible for Paul to go to the United States. And he's going to talk more about that. He's going to give us more detail about how it was hard for them making that move to Moscow. So next time we're going to have, we're not done with this topic of Polly and, as I say, the Dmitri and Marie's own experience, but it kind of seems like he stops now, if I have the page order correctly. And so next time, and then he'll resume it later, but next time we'll have him addressing the issue with Maria of why he doesn't want to go to the U.S., even if everything was in favor of it. And also the fact that everything is not in favor of it, and what his situation is as a so-called Nancist, a person who is stateless. Okay, so thank you for watching, and come back next time. Sorry I was so distracted. All right, take care. Bye.